that's how quick it is.
Now, and that is how quick it is. No Starbucks, no coffee. Now, some of you guys, and it's very European to meet people for lunch and dinner. That's wasted money. It's wasted for two reasons. You ain't this bad. You do not have any money to be buying anybody fucking anything, not even a fucking Starbucks. That's number one reason. Number two reason, it's not necessary. Although the European and South American business, and where they allegedly have some culture, it's polite to meet somebody for a lunch or a dinner. I used to meet people for drinks because I drank like a fish, and there was a reason to drink. Okay, and back in the days before people were drinking water out of fucking bottles like this. By the way, my last two trips, New York and Los Angeles, I had about 21 meetings. I was the only person at any of the meetings that didn't drink water out of it. I had coffee, and one of the meetings, it was at a bar, I had a drink. Everybody's drinking bottled water. That's a sad motherfucking commentary on life. 20 meetings, not one single person had a tea, a coffee, and the last couple meetings were at a drink. And you wonder why I say the world's irretrievable. Okay, so you're having it's like this. He was sent, and this is a cold call. This is a cold call. And you heard Margot yesterday say, she didn't say in desperation, I just started cold calling. And when you ask them if have you ever given any consideration about selling your business, almost everybody has given some consideration. They may not be for sale now. And the stumbling block there when he said, not a stumbling block, potential stumbling block, is when he says, well, all I need is a 3 years financials, balance sheet, and 3 years taxes. Normally it's a 3 years taxes. That's the speed bump. And if it takes more than a week to get your tax returns, they're cooking the books, or they haven't filed them. Now, some people will say, I haven't filed tax returns in 2-3 years. That's not a candidate to buy. There's always a reason why you don't file your tax returns. And it's never good vis-a-vis you wanting to buy it. So that's not a good excuse. And but they should be able to give you the tax returns. And again, if the tax returns are plus or minus within 10% of their the financials, the summary sheet, that's good. Okay. And again, remember, QuickBooks, you can put any damn number you want in there. And so QuickBooks doesn't mean anything. And even small regional accounting firms that would give you financials, because you can influence small regional accounting firms. You're never going to be able to influence the big accounting firms. And then he will have gotten those. He sends the NDA, and this is all in the templates. And then Josh looks at them. And then he sets up meetings, and sometimes Josh will have 3 or 4 or 5 meetings in a Starbucks if he's in a town that he doesn't have an office or his lawyers aren't there. I wouldn't do that. But I mean, the kids can get away with meeting potential sellers at a Starbucks. And there'll be 3 people sitting over there, and they're all waiting to see Josh. And maybe if I was sitting in a Starbucks, I wouldn't strike up a conversation with anybody about anything. I'm not interested in anything they got to fucking say to me. But people, they're nervous. Well, I'm here to meet a guy named Josh Kim. Me too. Now, see, that's too much risk involved in that. I wouldn't do that. The last thing you want is them to get their pea brains together, But the kids today, and even though I wouldn't do it, kids today, not that are part of the program of the 24 kids like you, but they're practicing QLA just from the free stuff on the site, are buying companies sight unseen. I don't know how you do that, really. Sight unseen. I would not. That's a recipe for disaster. I can't give you a recipe for success, but I sure can give you a recipe for disaster. Start to buy assets sight unseen. But that begs several questions. Why would a seller sell to somebody who's not even willing to go out and look? I mean that works both ways. What are the takeaway of Josh? Other than it's dead simple, because it is dead simple, kids. I'm begging you not to make it more confusing or complicated than it is. Yes, sir.
Doing this in Asia, where there's a bit more, people expect a bit more buy into the relationship, it's still use the same script, right?
And I don't believe you're wrong about the binding relationship shit. That's between near. I mean, you could say that of all places. You could say that in Germany. You could say that in England. I mean, this is 2019, not 1820. And I've been here since 81, and I've seen the transition in meetings. And if I was teaching QLA in 81, which I wasn't, it would be based on different templates, different processes, systems, and procedures, because the world has changed. But the last 10 years, it's been pretty much the same. Pretty much the same. But in the early 80s when you were here, I mean, it was just different in Germany and here. But it's not, guys. You're not part of that era. I'm old enough to remember it, but there's no use you still using the SOP, standard operating procedures from 35 years ago. When I got here, they had stiff collars still. The stiff collars. I wore a bowler. See that bowler? I wore a bowler just like this. Just like my butler, Edward. I wore a bowler. I had a brolly over an umbrella. But that's not the world now. That's not the world now. And the people in the Bank of England, and in those days it was who your shareholders were. If you got the Bank of England, the Church of England, you were in like Flynn. And I told you my lawyers here, when I mimicked and copied the successful offering in those days, they said, lawyers, we act for the Queen of England, the Church of England, the Bank of England, and Dan Peña. Because I use Freshfields. That's it. Then from that, I'd lever over to the Bank of England as a shareholder and the Church of England, and the deal was done. It was put away. Didn't have to. And then I didn't know the Kuwaitis from a hole in the ground at the time, but then the Church of England said, we're friendly for some reason. Of all people, the Church of England was friendly with the Kuwaitis, and they said, we've extended an offer to introduce you to the Kuwaiti Investment Office. And I didn't know what that meant then. Fuck. And then after I found out I did my homework, I was on them like a fucking cheap suit. And I was on my best behavior. I was,
That's what I wanted to ask you. So what's the difference between working in GCC in Kuwait and versus working anywhere else in the world?
In Kuwait? Oh, I mean, the manners count. Okay. I don't talk the way I'm talking here with you. After 4, 5, 6 years, and I know some of the guys, I talk differently. But in the beginning, I was on, like meeting the Pope. And not just because they were the largest manager of money in London at the time, with 177 billion pounds. I don't know if they're still, but they used to be, for many years, the largest manager of money. And when you had those kind of shareholders, now the Bank of England makes sense, the Church of England, but I didn't know, but they introduced me to the Kuwaitis, and I was blessed by Allah, no shit. And the longer I was their fair-haired boy, the more I realized, and they always used to say, Mr. Peña, you must have some Arabic you know. And I used to carry in my briefcase, I had a different kind of briefcase, a Financial Times in Arabic. And it would poke out so you could see the Arabic writing. They always spoke English, but they never would speak Arabic when I was in the room, because, well, maybe he, you know, maybe. But at the end of my tenure, when I told them that, somebody asked me, I said, no, I just carried that. He says, we always thought, but we were embarrassed to ask you, because if you did speak Arabic, that's insulting. But a couple of the English educated guys said, no, that's a plant. That's like in a movie set, which it was, but it worked because they could slip into Arabic. I mean, just at the drop of a hat. And a couple of them spoke other languages. They were well-educated guys. Not like our tribal guy, you know, like an animal that crawls around on all fours, you know. But the shareholders were now. Peter has got pedigree. Now it's who's going to put up the money for his private equity fund. That's the next important step. He's got personal pedigree. Now he wants investment pedigree. For example, if I were him, I'd go to KKR, Blackstone, a couple others. And if any one of those groups puts in money, you're looking at a little Hungarian shitbag billionaire. Absolute, 100% guaranteed. So it's still, rightly or wrongfully, and in my judgment, rightfully, an old boys network. But you want to be, and gals, you want to be one of the old boys. Now, when you can't be one of the old boys, then you flap your lips on fucking YouTube and you cry how the rich get richer and the poor get poor, which is true. But if you live on the rich side of the railroad tracks, I know it's ugly over there on the poor side, but you know, I'll do what I can, but I'm on board. Pull up the gangplank, you know, I'm on board. So I'm teaching you how to be one of those guys and gals. And so then you position yourself money's just not money then. Money, there's smart money, and if you can get somebody like Warren or, forget about it. You'll have to get dump trucks to load your money in. I mean, big lorries, big trucks. But that's a whole other, and some of the kids are in that. They're positioning themselves, no, I'm not going to take your money because I'm waiting to see if KKR is going to, they used to say punch your ticket. Not punch, but not this kind of punch your ticket, but get on your bus. And then once you get on that road, it's difficult to fuck it up. The kids find a way to fuck it up, and it's normally sex, drugs, and rock and roll again. You know, but the last thing the Kuwaitis wanted is to be embarrassed by me getting fucking hauled in with a prostitute into some airport or some shit. That would have been the end of my career. My name is their name, and then it's not the end of my career. They just shift me someplace else. But they won't take that. And for example, if you get involved in any of these big institutions that I just said, if you embarrass them, that's the end. There is no more. Okay, YouTube.